Let's assume we're getting you up to speed on the FIRE movement for the very first time. So we're going to start from the very top and go all the way through to an advanced method that you can use for yourself. That's what I'm going to do for you today. So you need to start with exactly what the FIRE movement is. So let's start with a definition. We're going to talk about who it's for, how it benefits you, all of that. But for a definition, FIRE movement, FIRE stands for Financially Independent Retire Early. FIRE, Financially Independent Retire Early. It means the goal of the FIRE movement is twofold, right? The first is to become financially independent, and the second is to retire early. So, financially independent, retire early. So, what does it mean to be financially independent, first of all? It means that your finances are not dependent on any one person, job, or entity. It means that you have complete control, as we have talked about, freedom of money. So financial independence is very important for what we are trying to do here. On the other side of the equation, most people will aim to retire at around 65 years old. That's the world standard. 65, 67, 68. What we actually find is that the retirement age has actually been going up for the last 20 years. What we find is that it's no longer 65. The average retirement age is actually 67 and a half. And by the time you're watching this, it could be 68, as much as 69, even going into the 70s. That's not good news. What you're essentially saying is that we have to work for 40 years. And if the average life expectancy is 79 years, then you're working for 40, and then you're only free for maybe 10, 11 years. That's not really a very good trade-off for most people, and a lot of people are waking up to this now. So going beyond that, we have to look at how to get financial independence, and then see if perhaps instead of 40 years, why don't we work for 10 years, 7 years, 15 years, and see if we can retire early. So the FIRE movement flips the script. Here's how it works. The goal and how we accomplish it is dependent upon us having assets that allow us to retire early. The very first step in the FIRE movement, and I'm going to read this here for you. As I said, we've had tons of research done on this, and so I want to make sure that I'm getting the wording correctly. So the first step of the FIRE movement is that you need to take a careful look, and this is going to get into our homework later on, but I'm just going to give you the information for now. You need to take a careful look at how much money you spend every month. The more accurate your expenses, the better this part will be. So what does that look like? Taking an accurate representation of how much you spend every month, knowing how much things cost, and also look at perhaps miscellaneous things that pop up, like a car repair, for example, that you didn't plan for. Look back and see how much these things cost you every month, and then multiply that by 12. That should give you a good estimate of what it costs you every year to maintain your life, how much you spend every year. Now, once you have this figure, this is important. This is your annual expense figure. Don't forget that. Your annual expense figure, because right now we're doing a little bit of math and we're going to calculate how you get to your FIRE number. When you get to this number, it's very important. So when you have your annual expense number, you're going to multiply that number by 25. By 25. So for example, for you, let's say you spend $100,000 every year, then your FIRE number will be 2.5 million. See how that works? 2.5 million. Now that's a simplified version of how to get to your FIRE number, but once you get to this FIRE number, it means that you'll never have to work again. Now, many people will say that once you get to that FIRE number, then you're okay, and that's something great to strive for. However, there are a few different ways that you can get to financial independence, retire early, without getting to the FIRE number, and could actually change how you do that calculation. So I'm actually going to go through what the different FIRE types are, and then by the end, I'm actually going to give you an easier version without saving $2.5 million on how you can get to financial independence and retire early. So here we go. There are four main types of FIRE. Four main types. Fat FIRE, OG FIRE, Lean FIRE, and Barista FIRE. And I'm actually going to give you a bonus one at the end. Fat FIRE. Fat FIRE is financial independence that achieves a life above which you are currently living. This is typically for high spenders, people who spend a lot of money. These people have high expenses, they have high expenditures, they have multiple cars, big houses, lots of vacations a year. Many people would like this. Typically, it's about 10K more than that per month, but at least it starts at 10K in terms of expenditures per month, 40K, 50K, 100K per month, whatever your number is. But that's the fat fire. OG fire is typically less than $10,000 per month. This is a traditional way of calculating your fire number, and it's your current lifestyle that you'd like to maintain. And if you'd like to maintain that for the rest of your life and you're happy with that right now, then do your calculations based on your expenses right now, multiply that by 25, and you'll have your OG fire number. The third type is a little bit easier than that, so you see the numbers are getting lower. You have lean fire. Lean fire is perfect for minimalists who just want to maintain the bare essentials. You can pay for your water, you can pay for your clothes, health-related expenses, shelter. This is fine for a lot of people. So then if you can just do that for the rest of your life, then you will achieve a financial comfort level that most people in the world don't have. I'm not saying that just, off whim. Most people would love to be able to not worry about these things. So then if you can get to lean fire, congratulations. That is a big deal. But then we have the fourth one, barista fire. This is a fraction of what your expenses would be every month. I know, why would someone want to get to financial independence, but it's a fraction of their expenses? So if you think about what benefits come from working at, for example, a company called Starbucks, which is actually where Barista Fire gets its name, they will give you dental, medical care, and a few other benefits that you would have to pay for on your own. If those things are taken care of by a part-time job, working at Starbucks, working at Walmart, then perhaps you don't need your full expenses to be taken care of by your fire number. And that's why Barista Fire has that number. So that's a little bit less than your expenses per month, which makes it easier. Usually you can consider it's about 50%, 60, 70% of your expenses every month. Of course, I'm going to come back to that, but I promise to give you one more. And this has to do with not Barista Fire, but Coast Fire, which works a little bit differently. So I'm going to define what Coast Fire is for you. Coast Fire is an easier version of Barista Fire because it allows you to coast into your retirement, but saving up early from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s so that you can retire and coast into retirement. So then by the time that you retire, you are guaranteed the lifestyle and retirement that you have right now. If most people did this, they'll be fine. So how does Coast Fire work, right? So then let's do a bit of calculation here. Let's say you start saving $600 per month when you were 20 years old. Assuming a 7% interest, by the time that you are 30, you have $160,441.92 by the time that you are 30. Now, if you take that by the time that you are 30, that's your net worth, that's what you have invested, and you never touch that money again, by the time that you are 65 years old, you will have $1,136,435.83. Again, assuming a 7% interest, and the stock market has done historically 10%, but we want to account for inflation, so we minus 3%. That's how we get the 7%. But you will have more in the bank than $1.1 million. The point here is, if you have that by the time that you are 30, you can coast into retirement and be a comfortable millionaire by the time that you are 65. That's what Coast Fire means. But before we get into the secret method, which I promised I would give to you, we have to talk about why fire movement makes sense for everyone. This is not just about finances. Here's the thing. When you start to prioritize your spending, what it is that you actually want to spend money on, you actually change the chemistry of how you view the world. For example, one of the things that happened to me is that I realized I value traveling more than having expensive clothes. I valued freedom more than owning lots of cars, but I still wanted to rent lots of cars. So then once you have these expenses panned out, your fire movement journey actually gives you so much clarity for what's important to you in life. And so bearing that in mind, we are going to continue and see what we think is literally just society telling us that these things are important, but actually a lot of things that when we actually look at them, they fade away over time. So I have people who chose to live with their parents even after getting to financial independence, right? How many of you would do that? Staying at home, not getting a new house, right? Moving to a cheaper country. All of these things are possible once you start to look at your finances really, really critically, and that's why I love the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early movement. So let's continue. That's why it's so important. We're not going after just half happiness, it's about total happiness. So here is the secret which I promised you. This is the best part of this entire lesson. So here it goes. Instead of trying to save until you get to your FIRE number, one better option would be to invest in assets that produce cash flow every month that are significantly greater than your liabilities every month. Cash flow greater than your expenses every month from assets. So then, I'm going to give you an example, and then we're going to get into our homework. Let's say you have 30 ATMs that are managed by 2 people. 30 ATMs around the city. And these ATMs produce $20,000 on average every month. So that's between $700 to $800 per ATM, right? Not too much, but you have 30 of them. And your expenses are only $5,000. Which means if you have 30 ATM machines that are managed by 2 people, so it's not taking your own time, and these ATM machines produce $20,000 per month, and your expenses, including those 2 people, are only $5,000 per month, then you have essentially achieved the financial freedom several times over in only a few years, as many years as it took you to get to 30 ATM machines. You don't even have to have $20,000 in cash, because even if you cash flowed half of that, only $10,000 per month, you would still be fine. And again, these are very reasonable numbers in as much time as it took you to get to 30 ATM machines. You can travel, you can learn a new language, you can do whatever you want, you can travel all over the world, and your ATM machines are paying for your life. So here's how you do it. Again, write down your expenses, figure out how many ATM machines, how many assets, how many laundromats, how many businesses, how many online stores, how many YouTube channels you need to get to your financial freedom number, which is your expenses being covered. This is not that hard. But then again, as we were talking about earlier, the 4 different types of FIRE, if you go about it this route, you can get there a lot faster without needing $2.5 million in the bank. So with that said, of course, people, we have our homework for today. You have 3 items for homework. I'm going to read them to you. Make sure that you get them done, because tomorrow we are back and we are talking about FIRE still. We have a little bit more math to talk about tomorrow. I'm going to make it super easy for you. So here's homework number 1. Calculate all the expenses occurred in a month and then in a year, and multiply both numbers by 2. These represent your target income from assets. Again, you're aiming for double whatever your expenditures are, just for a cushion, so that you can have a peaceful life and continue to get richer. This is number 2, use the 100 businesses cheat sheet to identify your top 5 businesses that you believe that you can do. So we are piggybacking from yesterday's homework. And number 3, write down the type of FIRE that you want. Tomorrow we're going to do some math, so that it's important that you see which one of the principles apply to you. So are you going to do Fat FIRE, OG FIRE, Barista FIRE, Coast FIRE, Lean FIRE, or are you going to do our special type of FIRE, which is covering your expenses every month? Happy calculating, people. I will see you tomorrow. Always remember, you are one decision away. Take care.